welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. Thank you for joining me in the middle of your Labor Day weekend. Hope it's a restful, fun weekend for you, especially when you consider your football Hogs got off to 1-0 like we thought they would, 52-7 over poor left in shambles Alabama A&M. Got a little tricky the first couple of possessions as we had a 7-all game. Arkansas pulled away. I was there to cover that, but I was also there because Caleb Holt, the first of many five-star visitors to come with the Razorbacks, was on campus. He took an official visit this weekend. It was one of those kind of late situations where we didn't know about this specific weekend as a visit date for him to Arkansas until the beginning of the week. And so it's not like some of these other ones we've known about for several weeks that are upcoming still. What up, Kevin? Been waiting for this all day. Well, I just got back to Little Rock just a short time ago. I was doing an interview with Caleb Holt earlier today, put out an article, published a video of that interview here on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. You need to go check that out. It's not very long. It's about a minute and a half. So that's easy. That's an easy watch and listen. It was really revealing, though, for the brief period of time that we spent. I went through several things. We'll go through some of that today. I got a lot of feedback about the visit, not only from Caleb and what you see in the interview, but some stuff, a couple of things we talked about when the video was turned off and we weren't recording at that point. Talked a little bit more. Then I had other sources giving me information throughout the weekend. And of course, I was in Fayetteville. I got to see him, come down to the student section and hang, live it up a little bit with the students. Looked like they were having fun. He put an IG out, showing him interacting with those students. I think they made poster cards, made signs with his name on it, wooing him, courting him to be a Razorback. Calipari certainly did that. And look, a lot of times when we're in this business and we do follow-ups with recruits, a lot of times you hear the same thing, the visit was fine, it was good, it was great, and it doesn't matter how it's worded every time. Sometimes you get a feeling either that's true and the words aren't flabby. Sometimes you think they're a little flabby and maybe not true. And sometimes it's true and it just doesn't necessarily mean you're in the lead or going to be in the lead or ever get the player. So we're going to focus really on just about the merits of the visit itself, which I think is as close to a grand slam home run as you can get. I started getting feedback on Friday. I did a show. I came on Friday night and did one of these before I got out of town early the next morning, Saturday. Talking about some of the feedback, visit vibes are great, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Another one said good, but that was Friday when he arrived. It was already getting off the ground. And we talked about all the things that were coming up, that Saturday would be the big, the guts, the meat, the fangs, the hair, the big part of the visit. And then it concluded, this morning, but everything I continued to hear was out of the park. Now, I mean, not just out of the park, but maybe, talking again, grand slam just on the merits of the visit. And we're going to go through what Caleb told me. Again, you go watch the video when you get a chance. But one of the things I kept hearing on Saturday was from morning basketball practice, people inside that building were telling me how intense it was, how elevated, how charged that practice was. And it wasn't in a way that was negative. It was like all positive, but it was like taken to another level. You had Anthony Black, Pro Hog, who I've done many interviews with, just a great Razorback ambassador, a great player when he was in his one and done season, a lottery pick, already a solid NBA player going into year 3, and he loves the Hogs. But he was in town. He was at the practice. So I asked Caleb Holt about that. But just aside from what Holt told me, I'm telling you, the folks I talked to that were in there said the practice itself was like, because they have good practice in there, but it was just kind of like the vibes with who was in there in addition to who's usually in there. You got your full roster. We're going to talk more about things I'm hearing from practice. By the way, since the team got back, that's going to be after the Caleb Holt part. I know you want to stick around for that. I got some good intel about what's been going on in that practice facility with players I know you want to hear more about. I get needled about some of these new big men all the time. What's going on? What's going on? Well, we got some feedback and some intel on what's been going on in practice. But yesterday, specifically in the morning, it was off the charts. I mean, it was one of those, it felt like a pro atmosphere, somebody told me. It felt like a real pro atmosphere in there. Hey, how about put your best foot forward for Caleb Holt or any other visitor for that matter in these top shelf 5 stars that in progression are going to start filing in the next few weeks. We'll see if Arkansas gets Brandon McCoy or somebody else in this upcoming weekend, September 5th through 7th. No football game in Fayetteville. It'll be in Little Rock against Arkansas State at War Memorial Stadium. But that Calipari's never been bashful or shy about scheduling visits when there's not a fan atmosphere on campus for a football game during this time of year. Then it just continues with guys like Arafat Gianni, Jordan Smith Jr. the weekend after that as you move through September. That'll close out or start to close out September. And then you finally do with Tate Kenny's visit at the end of the month when Arkansas football's back home. That's the next time they're back in Fayetteville after yesterday. And they'll host Notre Dame. That'll be a wild atmosphere. And then the following weekend, it's a bye week for the football team, and you're bringing in Cole Clower. So again, visit dates can change. Sometimes they can go away. Sometimes you shuffle the deck. Right now, everybody slotted has got their own weekend. We've talked about how there's a possibility, even if it's minute, to double up and have more than one OV. Probably not going to happen. That seems like a last resort. Or if it's strategic because you want to put two players together that you want to sell them together, that's always a possibility. But for now, everybody's gotten their own weekend. Caleb Holt certainly did. And man, what a visit. Everything I heard was positive. Everything that came out of Caleb's mouth when I talked to him this morning was positive. Go watch it for yourself. Draw your own conclusions about it. But, he's sitting there describing it was a great vibe. He said it was the first football game, so it was out here. And he was raising his arm up, I guess, leveling it up, kind of a next level visit. That's how I interpreted that. But he said it was a great experience. He said he and Cal got to talk a lot this weekend. He said they ate a lot of food and had those opportunities to sit there and talk basketball. And if you think about Calipari, the Hogfather, the romance of the Italian mobster or the boss, the guy that's in charge of everything. And, not in an arrogant way, but in a way where, pay him his due, man. This is the greatest high school recruiter of all time. He knows how to work the room. He knows how to talk to these players, and it's not BS. It's all a track record that is evidence, exhibits A through infinity of what he's done to help players get to the next level. And he's real about these things in these conversations. So that's what's going on. And Caleb Holtz, that's something he wanted to talk about today when I was asking him questions this morning. But think about Calipari, how that's just perfectly in his wheelhouse, out at dinner, chilling, not sitting in some stuffy conference room or, there's other ways you can have meetings and do that. And I'm sure they probably did some of that, but it sounds like they spent a lot of time just over having a meal, family out, relaxing a little bit and really getting to the heart of how Caleb Holt could fit in, how he could help the program. I like that imagery. I like thinking about that because it just seems to me, the Calipari style, out and about on the town and just, doing it right. So I liked what I heard there. And I think Caleb Holt, the way he expressed it, the way I heard it, it was all good. He said Calipari told him if he came to Arkansas, he looks for him to be a leader. He said, he looks to me to be a leader. And he said, as far as his history and everything with getting one and dones, he said, that's my goal. So, you don't have to talk a lot to just throw in some history, and you see that it lines up with what all these players want. This guy maybe has the best path to doing this because he's proven he could do it. We talk about this all the time, but now we have the first official visit in a long time. You look at 2026, the last one was Jay Andrews back in December, committed and pledged to the Razorbacks in mid-May. We know he's got to sign in November, but here we go. We're best off, and we're getting the first feedback coming in from these guys because we get feedback from players about what Cal's telling them in the recruiting pitches, what he says when he comes to see them. When we're out on the spring and summer grassroots, did you notice that Cal was in here watching your game today? Yeah. All that's good. You get good feedback from that. But they had the heart stuff. The parents were in there. I met his mom and I had a nice chat this morning. Such a super nice lady, really excited about getting coverage. Caleb seemed excited, still on the heels of the visit. So it was all good there. And we talked about this in either, if not the last episode, or maybe we reminded it the last one, but the previous one for sure, very recently, about how that wide open recruiting period that happened September 3rd and runs through April 30th of the following year, with few exceptions, just a few days here and there, about 3 times in that long stretch of time, months, where coaches can go out and do in-homes. They can do, go to the high schools, go to practices, all these things they can do. And you got to figure Calipari prioritized this time last year when it got to September 4th was the date last year. He spent a lot of time in Atlanta area for Malik Thomas and for Caleb Holt. I told you I was courtside in May of 2024. Calipari had been on the job for a month and was courtside at the Adidas 3SSB in Bryan, Texas, watching Holt compete. I was watching Holt. I was watching Calipari watch him. That's the job. That's what we do. If you want to know about your team and your Razorbacks, the only way to do that is, and as far as I'm concerned, doing this job is to be boots on the ground, man. Be in the trenches. Talk to families. Talk to handlers. Talk to players. Talk to the coaching staff. Talk to other coaching staffs. If you're not doing that, you're on the periphery, and I won't do that. So this stuff I've been following for a while. This is a long-term relationship build between Calipari and Caleb Holt. This is how Calipari does most of this. It's how he gets down, man. And so this isn't the culmination. This is one of those peaks, getting the visit, getting them on campus. The ultimate's getting a commitment. This is a priority target. This is not, Calipari's not bringing players in for show. He doesn't do the window dressing knowing he's not going to get a player. Doesn't mean that he's going to win them all. Doesn't mean that he's certain right now that he's going to get him. But I'm telling you, based on the strength of this visit and everything I heard, folks were ecstatic about how this went. It couldn't have gone better. I mean, I heard it phrased so many different ways. It was a great vibe. It's been a great vibe, Holt said. Great experience. He really liked the two practices. He was asked today what stood out the most. He goes, the two practices. He got to go to two of them. That's big time, man. Not everybody gets to do that. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes, but not always. And he talked again about what Cal said. I asked him again, maybe a little more info. What's Cal telling you? What's his vision for you as a Razorback? And I'm going to try to quote this here. My handwriting's so sloppy. Again, it's in that video interview that you can go check out. Come here to Arkansas. Of course, be a guard. Play with other good players. Of course, win. He goes, but I want to get to the NBA, and he feels like he's the best that does that. And of course, that's the track record. Calipari is not, if he's not selling what his track record is and saying this is unprecedented, no one's been able to match this, then he's not doing the job. That's not, there's nothing wrong with affirming that you're the best at something if you are. You've got to, you hear Calipari all the time say, can I do a humble brag? There's a way to sell that and a way to bring it. And so he's a master again, and it's not BS. It's all facts. It's all fact based, and it's not cherry picked. Go find me a track record that's close to his, where you could make some kind of case for something else in terms of the decades he's been in as a high school recruiter. And people say, well, is he really assembling talent now, as much as other things? Retention. Getting guys out of the portal who are not on the same, not that they're not talented, but they're not necessarily NBA earmarked talent because they'd be gone already and not in the portal. Now you could argue and say, well, with NIL, maybe they've got a carrot now not to go to the NBA, but typically if they can get to the NBA on a legitimate draft slot and know that they're going to make a roster or whatever and get that pro career started, that's their job. That's what they focus on, 1 year closer or whatever to an NBA contract. So he still recruits one and dones. Whether he settles on 3, 4, or even 5, I talked about in the last episode. I have a source that's, familiar with some of his recent thinking. If the chips fall right with the right amount, the right combinations of players, he may go as many as 5. But of course, he's assembling talent. He's not, and that's also a roster build. You have to have studs, even freshmen. You can't rely on mostly on that necessarily. Certainly not putting all your chips in that bucket. That's why retention matters. But don't forget, retention, what were those players? 90% of those players that Cal brought in are talented. They're considered NBA talents typically, and then for one reason or another, maybe they're not quite ready to take that next step. Some of them never will be. That's just how it works. Not everything lands perfectly, but those are also talented players. Just because they're not in your next recruiting class, they were in your previous one, that stuff still helps you. All that stuff's on display. Again, we're going to talk practice. Got some good updates, I think. I think they're good updates. And you know how we do it, man. We dig and we get it. But all right, so I really like this. We brought up the fact that, the football game, he was there, and what we just talked about a little earlier, and he said, yeah, they showed a lot of love. He goes, I haven't had that at a visit yet, so that was pretty cool to see. I think that's because, I mean, maybe he's visited Ole Miss. I'm not sure he visited his OV to Ole Miss at a time where they had a fan atmosphere on campus when he was there. I'm not sure about that. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Um, and these upcoming visits he talked to us about that. Kentucky next weekend. Well, we knew Kentucky had one scheduled, in September. Then Alabama after that. Some people think Alabama's the leader there. He didn't mention Auburn, and I asked him. I said, "Well, you didn't mention Auburn." I said, "What about Auburn?" He goes, "Oh yeah, my Auburn visit's October 13th." So I've got him quoted in my article. Again, some of this stuff that we talked and did not make the video. Some of it did make the article. But one of the things I talked about for so long, going back months and months, was the fact that when nobody was talking about this yet, I mean nobody, not the national guys, nobody, having been courtside for him in May and watching him make play after play for other teammates in the Adidas 3SSB, and I'm like, this guy could easily go get 30. He could chase that 30 bomb and get it every game out, but he's not doing it. He actually bypassed his own to get better shots and help teammates get into the flow. And I mean, like a lead guard at times. And I kept commenting, at 6'4", this guy's arguably the top, I think the most talented, the most, true two in the field in his class. I've got him ranked as the second best player in this class. Top 5 pretty much everywhere else. Again, Jonathan Wasserman with Bleacher Report, NBA Draft Guru, NBA.com. That's who they lean on to talk NBA draft. His 2027 mock showing Holt as a one and done after his next season of high school and a freshman season of college, 2027 draft. He's got him going number 2 overall behind Tyron Stokes. Well, that's how I'm ranked in my rankings. Jordan Smith Jr. up there too. J.J. Andrews 4th. But the point is, Holt, no one's lost on the fact of the talent. He showed it in World Cup. We talked about that. Averaged 10 points, shot 52% on threes in 7 games, made 13, nearly 2 per game. So it's not one of those misleading stats. He hasn't been as good statistically, percentage-wise, efficiently on Adidas 3SSB, but he's had his moments and he has games where he catches fire. But what blows me away outside of, I think he's been an underrated defender in terms of what people talk about. We've been hyping that as well. A lot of that showed itself at World Cup. But even bigger than all that is his ability to make plays for others and potentially play a lot on the ball as a lead guard. Run your offense through him. Let him pick and choose. Let him use his creativity as a guy that can create his own shot to force defenses to send help, to hedge, whatever, someone else cheating a little bit, whatever it takes, he's going to make the right play. He's already proven that over and over. And now you're starting to hear more and more people refer to him as maybe a combo guard. I asked him specifically about that. I said, all of that to remind you of some of the things we talked about to set this up. I brought it up. I said, let's talk about this. Combo guard, lead guard. He goes, absolutely. He goes, that's where I think my future lies. He goes, I think that's what it's going to need to be. That's part of the deal. And so I'm not surprised at all. And I guarantee you, if he's talking like that, that means Calipari's talking like that. And that's what they're talking about. J.J. Andrews, arguably the best two-way player at his position. Jordan Smith Jr., I think, is the best two-way player regardless of position. And I think Caleb Holt's right there. I think Holt, Jordan Smith Jr., and J.J. Andrews, the three of those consistently show effort, determination. They've got the physical tools. They've got the strength, the athleticism, all that, but it's want to. On defense, especially with guys at that level, when they can go score at will, you don't always see that effort and that consistent effort, determination, and that hard-nosed, grit to make stops on defense. And all of those guys have it. It's why I have him rated so highly. It's not just about his ability to score, him rounding out as maybe a combo guard, but other things. All right, 19 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. When he talked about going to the 2 practices, he said he was really impressed with what he saw, how they moved around, how he gets it done. So, he mentioned Coach Cal just about every compliment that he had about what was going on this weekend. It kept coming back to that, except for the part where he was, kind of hanging out and having fun with the students. He didn't bring Cal into that part of it, but just about everything else. The practice is intense. Again, Cal holds everybody accountable. He really wants them to be their best. It was really intense. They got a lot of shots up. They went over a lot of their offense. And they have a fast offense. When I asked him about AB, AB being in there, did they get a chance to interact? He said, yeah. He goes, I've known him a little bit. This weekend, I got to talk to him a good bit about Arkansas and everything. So, and think about AB, man. Again, he's a great ambassador. He's a guy that loves Arkansas. He's speaking from the heart. He cherished his time here. He's just one of those guys that carries himself the right way. One of the fan favorites, and you want that kind of energy in the building. Again, the energy was elevated. It's already at a high level. I hear feedback all the time about those practices and how the energy level is, and this was up several notches. It was like a pro atmosphere. I don't doubt it one bit. I just kept getting different things. They all seemed out of the park, grand slam home run. All right, nearly 21 minutes in. Let's pump the brakes for a second. This was a visit. It was a great visit. It was wonderful, right? I mean, whatever superlatives you want to use, y'all got better ones than I do. And I've got one eye open. I need food and rest. And I'm dehydrated. I think I'll have a little water. But what I will say is this. This is not, I'm in no position to say Arkansas is the leader here. One of the times we came on when we revealed weeks ago that they were finalizing a visit with him. And so we brought that out. And finally we got the word what the visit dates were early this week. And then I had a source telling me, and we came on and we talked about this intel. I brought it as new intel, that source thinks Arkansas is in the top 2 or 3. And that they weren't even sure that Auburn wasn't ahead of Alabama, where some folks I talked to think Alabama's in the lead. A lot of people think Kentucky's a real wet, in a great spot there. They're getting this upcoming visit. But the folks that cover Kentucky, too many of them tell me, they may be going all in on Caleb Holt. And I don't know that you're going to be able to spend enough to get both of those guys, or that they want to be at the same place. Not that they have anything against each other, but maybe more about, what that spotlight looks like, not in a selfish way for Caleb Holt, but at some point, some of the things he's wanting to do, being on the ball a lot. What do you think Tyron Stokes is? He's a jack of all trades. He can play on the ball. He can play 3 or 4 positions. So you could probably figure out a way to make that work. But either way, the folks that cover Kentucky don't see a Caleb Holt, Tyron Stokes. But so some of the teams you hear at the top and some of these he has upcoming, it's not even clear really who the leader is. I probably lean towards Alabama right now, just based on having more voices that say that. But that doesn't mean that's true. And it doesn't mean that Arkansas didn't overcome any disadvantage this weekend. Keep it in perspective. This is process, results, or something else. The process, this is a big stage. An offer, a visit, and a commitment. Those are the big 3: offer, visit, commitment. Period. This is one of the big 3. We're in the second of 3. And so the visit, you got to knock that out of the park if you are behind. If you're in the lead, you want to build on that lead and knock it out of the park. This is what happened this weekend. This was a grand slam. It's the way I look at it. Normally, I'll call it like it is. They've had visits up there where you heard the right words and it was, and we'll say, well, he said it was a good visit. We'll see. This is one of those where we're probably maybe even going a little overboard. I don't want to oversell it, but I can't help the feedback I kept getting, and then to talk to the player, and that was the feel that I got out of all of it and putting that all together. Doesn't mean Arkansas's, again, in the lead here. Doesn't mean that at the end of the day you win this recruitment. I think you helped yourself. And John Calipari doesn't need a ton of help. He doesn't need a ton of help. The track record itself, can help make up for, an average or a little slightly above average visit. You got to your room and I've gotten all the little nitty gritty details about a lot of OVs that never see the light of day on weird little things that families and players, bugs them a little bit. And sometimes they're able to overcome that and see the light. I've seen it work out great. And I've seen other things where the little things blew it up. This one, I don't think there were any little things that were off. I think it was all great. All right, 24 minutes in. I spent a lot of time on this OV. I'm glad I did. We went through a lot. The practices, man, the practices. We're talking about practice now. God bless Allen Iverson for making the phraseology still a household thing, decades later. But we're talking about practice because that's all we got right now. And we're not getting a lot of highlights or videos coming out of these things yet. I don't know that we ever will this time around. We had more this time last year than we've had so far. Now as media got to go in early July for an hour. We got to record for 15 minutes. We were told probably coming back in September. We'll see. So all we have, the bulk of what we have right now are just people that are in the building. I talked to coaches that have been invited in there. We've shared that intel. Other people that are in there quite a bit and giving me a lot of good stuff. And we've gone through a lot, a lot. Here's some more for you. Everybody's asking me, Paulo Smito, what's he doing? What's going on in practice with that 7'1", 7'8" wingspan? I'm going to go ahead and give him 7'8" for now. Someone prove me wrong. 7'5" doesn't seem enough. Big dude. People ask me all the time, what's he doing in there? All right, so my source who's been in there watching these practices said, this dude tries to dunk everything. He tries to dunk everything. Okay, so that sounds great, right? Oh, I love the that machismo, he that macho man, right? Going after the rim. Bring me the rim, big fella. Put him in the rim. But part of that is, and this is what I was told, is that he's still trying to figure out how to play and how to make the right play. And so now if he doesn't have the angle on it, or he's not really in position, or he's getting bodied, he's trying to rely on that massive wingspan and that height, because he is quick to the rim. But when you're getting bodies in there and you're getting moved away, sometimes you don't have the finish you want. So it's a work in progress. The onlooker says, I'm really not sure yet, based on what I've seen, what their plan is for him. And I think it's going to be well. Remember, he and Elmer Zavitz, the other 7-footer, just got on campus, last week? And they didn't have June and July with the team. And they weren't front end. Those are day one projected rotation guys, planned guys. They were at the end, spring. Doesn't mean that there's not a huge upside like the staff thinks, that they've got something with Smito. It also means that we might, who knows how much we'll see or how soon if we do, but we're getting some of that feedback. He's trying to dunk everything. There's a part of that I like. I like the aggressiveness. I think there's other parts of it is when they stop and they go through things, what you need to do here, how to use your, maybe pivot a different way, or turn to the basket and use your, there's different ways that the coaching staff will try to get him to finish the play right, and when you're kind of resolving to trying to dunk everything and you can't, that's just going to be, how long does it take him to pick up the things they want him to do and acclimate? Because we know he can dunk, and we know he's going to get opportunities to do that. The other parts of it maybe help make the game easier for him. One example would be just a ball fake. Turn one direction, ball fake, get someone off their feet, and then go up. That's something that I was told Elmir Zavitz did. Here's some inside intel for you on Zavitz. I was told that my source told me that he was told directly that they've got Zavitz listed at 6'11", 265. He looks bigger than that to me. I think he's closer to 7 feet. We've seen him listed that way, whatever. But the weight part, I'm like, 265, come on. And I'm told that whatever they've done there to test that, it's closer to, it's a hair above 285. So I don't know where that goes from here. I don't know if they're happy with that. I didn't get that feedback. Are they okay with that? Do they want to see him drop some? Are they good with that? Do they want him to get just whatever? But that's where he's at. And I was told, what I saw on tape, what we've talked about, he's not a guy that's rising above people. He's not blowing by anybody. He's not able to get an edge, getting, around somebody. He's pretty much a strictly low post kind of guy. Got to turn. It's methodical, and then just get his frame into you and try to get a clean finish or move you out of the way. That kind of stuff. And some of that, there's a lot of value. Being a guy that goes in and just plays physically, picks up some fouls, whatever, and whenever that is. But I was told that he figured out pretty quick that his timing, he's just not going to be able to always beat guys with his shot attempt, because they're timing him up and they're quicker and get off the floor higher. So he started using some ball fakes, and he had a play this past week where he went, I think he cycled through one or two ball fakes, pump fakes, got everybody off their feet and went up, and they thought he was going to literally bring the rim and crash the backboard. Like it was thunder in there when he crammed one, and that was in a competitive setting. I'm told that the team is doing has already gotten into competitive 5-on-5 and some of that, but it wasn't end-to-end full court. It was half setting stuff. Obviously, this stuff evolves, and tomorrow when they get back on the court, whenever that is, they might start doing full court. But it's been mostly half court stuff. There's so many different ways you drill down on things, even when you're doing some live competitive stuff. But here's what we really need to talk about. I got out, got some of the stuff about the newcomers that everybody's dying to know, other than the photos they've seen and the wow factor stuff I said last week that I was told with Samito. But here's really what I think is the headline. I'm told that Darius Acuff Jr. has not only built on the good things that he was doing in June and July, but maybe even has, I mean, in just the first few days back, has really taken a giant leap in terms of really putting together his own offense, setting other guys up, how to mix that up, and where you're not leaving something on the table, where you're hunting your shot too much. Maybe that was a bad shot. You had a play here you should have made, or you passed up a good shot driving opportunity because you're trying to be too unselfish. He's putting it together. He's a guy defensively that I have some question marks about, but on offense, he's going to be your lead guard. He and DJ Wagner in some tandem, but I think he's going to start games as that. And what you want to hear is your true freshman 5-star guard who you think potentially could be all SEC, could be your leading scorer. We even had a show we talked about, could he be an All-American? You want to hear that guy is living up to what you think he should be as a top 5 game coming guy, one of the picks for National Player of the Year in high school last year. I mean, this is what you need to hear. It wasn't that he wasn't doing good stuff in June and in July. The day we were in for practice, he was really working on that dribble handoff, his role, setting things up on a DHO and the screen slip game, pop, roll. He's got the bigs that can cat in multiple ways. And he did a really good job. I thought he probably did the best guards in there that day with that. We didn't see as much from him and his offense. There was time where they were going up and down the court in some live, and I think he had a little runner and then he hit a 3. So he showed you a glimpse of what he can do on his own. Stuff we know he's got. We weren't judging him on 1 hour there, and he was choosing to set guys up. It sounds like now he's really getting a feel for how to mix that in. So that's the first name that came up to me as kind of basically a month. Got back on a campus, school started. They were doing mostly strength and conditioning, maybe some pickup. Maybe they, at the end of the first week, they got into some of the on-court. Then this past week, it's been more of actual on-court stuff, and there's more coming out of there. There's more being revealed. The other name I keep hearing that's excelling is DJ Wagner. So your third-year veteran guy who did his best as lead guard last year, you feel good about both players playing the lead guard spot. I have much fewer questions about DJ Wagner defensively, being able to guard his position. And I think most people think that's going to be a strength. So there's the pros are not exactly the same with each other, meaning, one guy's, they're both poor defenders. They're both good at this. They really don't shoot threes. Not everything is the same. And so that means based on matchups, based who's on that night, all these different things, these guys can complement each other when they're on the court together. And then you figure out what you have exactly game to game by what's working and what's not. But I like what I'm hearing about both of those. If you remember when we started giving intel when the team first got on campus, it was Nick Pringle who was opening eyes on that front line for a while. And then bam, all of a sudden it was Trevor Brazile, and he just took the torch. He just took the torch and ended up being our player. We did a top 5, ranked the players from the summer. He was number 1, right? Guess what? This first week, it's somebody else's turn to hold that mantle. It's Malik Ewan. He's kicking ass and taking names out there, I hear. There's some more intel for you. Malik Ewan is doing his thing. And we know that offensively, he's got really high ceiling in terms of putting him in situations with other talented players. I don't know how much talent was around him at Florida State. There was some, but I don't think as much here as it is here. Plus, he's got another year. Plus, he may be expanding to add that 3-point shot. He only has 1 career attempt. But what we saw in practice that day and reports we kept hearing is that he's knocking down those shots. But I've heard that Malik Ewan has kind of been the one that's been standing out, and he's hard to deal with offensively. He is hard to deal with offensively. So we know that. He can put the ball on the deck. He can see. He's got good court awareness as a passer. He can back you down. He can take you off the bounce and get in his shot. He's very efficient around the basket. He can finish above the rim, over 50 dunks last year at Florida State. He's a good offensive rebounder. He's just a problem on offense. And now if he's adding the 3-point shot, so he's the big that stood out. Another player that was remarked on was Billy Richmond III. That has been consistent going back to the summer. He's bigger, stronger. We know he's relentless. We know he's a determined player. We know he's athletically gifted. I did hear that his shot's been a little bit off. It seemed to be improved. You were hearing better reports in June and July in terms of when I saw it, it looked like it had a little more arch on it. And you were hearing when you weren't in, when I wasn't there from others, that, yeah, he's starting to consistently knock down those middies, doing a little bit better, shooting from three, a little more consistent. I'm told so far, maybe he's off a little bit with his shot. But everything else, I mean, he just stands out because of the work he does defensively, getting out in transition. I mean, I call him rim kill Bill because that's what he lives to do is kill the rim or anybody that gets in his way. The only thing I say, Malik Thomas has been impressive in the shooting drills. Going in live right now, I think it's just going to be up and down for a while. You got veteran, bigger, stronger, athletic guys like Billy Richmond III and Carter Knox taking their turns challenging him. That is good for him. These are good things for Malik Thomas. It's going to help him take the next step. Part of what they're trying to do is get him to minimize wasted movement, whether that's on the ball or off, better shot selection, get into spots, one dribble, boom, pull, or catch and shoot, those kind of things. And when you've got guys that can D you up, it probably frustrates you a little bit for what you're used to doing, but it also maybe helps drill home the point. This is why I need to do some of this stuff. So it wasn't bad for Malik, what I heard, but it's kind of like some of what we've heard. It was a little bit of a roller coaster in June and July, and it may be a little bit still like that. And then when you look at the shooting drills, the dude's killing it, I'm told. So at some point, all these things start to snap together or piece together. And with true freshmen, you never know how soon it is once your season starts. Arkansas's got a challenging schedule, probably the toughest schedule in school history. I think it probably is. And so, learning curve for some of Darius Haycuff Jr. is not going to be perfect. Some of these veteran guys, they got to feel their way around because they're new as a team. Most of this is new to each other. Yeah, you had 4 in retention. That means, half your 2 deep or more are new guys. Even if they're veterans, they're new to you and new at the school. All right, so you get it. So it sounds to me like practices have been really positive, and I've gotten some good, like I said, takeaways from what I'm told is going on inside there. I think the biggest thing I loved hearing about the visit, though, was Holt saying stood out to him, and all the feedback I got about how that was nuts in there in a good way, like not anything weird. They weren't throwing, catfish hole hush puppies onto the court, and I don't know why I went there. Catfish hole's great, but the point is, it's not like you're looking for reasons to say it was great. From what I gathered, it was like a genuine experience in there. AB in there. I mean, I think that's really cool, and it sounds like to me, from what Caleb Holt told me, this was his kind of visit. And you look at the body language, all of that stuff. I interviewed him back in May. Great kid when I was in Bryan, Texas at the Adidas 3SSB. Put some highlights out on Twitter along with that interview. So I'm no stranger to talking to him, but he's a guy that I think, again, you bring him in, just like I say about Jordan Smith Jr., just like I say about J.J. Andrews, it's going to be hard once you put them on the court to take them off because they take care of the defensive end. They won't be perfect. They got to learn. They got to learn how to communicate on the college level. They learn all the nuances about footwork and how do you turn your body in this direction, how many degrees this way while you're helping or hedging or cheating. It's sometimes the coaches teach you how to cheat a little bit off your guy. All this stuff, it levels up. But he's the kind of guy, when I watch him, man, he really cares about winning. He really cares about winning. And don't forget, he was the MVP of the prestigious Adidas Euro Camp with future pros from all over the world. He was MVP of the Adidas 3SSB, led his 17U Game Elite to the championship. And then on top of that, he was a 10-point scorer. I mentioned that earlier, and helped World Cup Team USA under 19 win that World Cup, going a perfect 7-0 unbeaten. He was one of the guys off the bench for class of 2026 who I thought outplayed some of the older guards. And he only got 17 minutes a game, and he averaged 10 points. And again, really effective and efficient from the field. I think overall field goals, he was over 58%, right at 52% from three. And he's a guy that averaged nearly 3 steals per game over there. And you look at him on Adidas 3SSB, always between 2.5 and 3 steals. And he's not a guy that's out there taking a lot of risk and a lot of bad gambles and just cheating. He does it. He just comes by with natural gifts and just being a dog and getting into you. Man, I like that. All right, 40 minutes in, I'm wrapping this thing up. Thanks for your patience today. I hope you got to see all the content. I got to spread it out to some more places, get it published in other places. Be sure to check out, again, a 1.5-minute interview that I've got on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Now we've got this out. Again, if something important breaks, if we get a Caleb Holt commitment later today or something else with a visit that I think we just got to go live today, we will. Probably going to be sometime tomorrow. Until then, thanks for being here. Please hit subscribe, like, and share if you haven't already. Be great in all of your endeavors. We appreciate all of you. See you soon.